Hello everyone, Jen Bell here, and today I want to walk through my design team project for Country Craft Creations using Tamara's own bee house papers. And for this, I have made a 5.5 by 5.5 inch square folio, and this folio also contains some pockets and a couple of tip out pages on the inside and folds out. Once I do this walkthrough, I will do a short pause in this video, and then I will move on to the next segment, which will show you how I create the base of these folios. For this, I wanted to really enhance the paper. It has a lot of vibrant yellows and greens, and of course the black script. And in order to do that, I have done some fussy cutting of the bees in the paper, and to pick up the black and yellow, along with this bee pot. And I have added some little die cut elements of honeycomb. This is from a die cut set, or excuse me, a die set from Sizzix from Tim Holtz. And I've also enhanced the black using a little stamped sentiment from my stash. I've incorporated a little bit of pink because there is some pink touches in the paper. And if you'll notice on this sheet here, I don't know if you can see these flowers down here. I do have the paper, what I have left, because I used most of it. I have it laid out here on my table so that you can see it. These flowers, I just happen to have very similar flowers in my paper flower stash that worked. And I have touched those with a little bit of glossy accents and some thicker embossing powder to create what almost looks like honey, and added just a touch of glitter glass that is an iridescent for that sparkle. Around the edges of my album, I did use that technique, but I also added a little distress ink in Vintage Photo underneath of it, so it almost looked a little bit more like actual honey running down the cover. This little folio, as I said, measures 5.5 by 5.5, and on the inside there are 2 tip outs, which add to the album. They add 4 extra pages. So with that being said, I want to move on and show you how I've done this. Now my cover, I will tell you that the cover itself has 2 mats, and throughout I've used only 1 mat in the pages. But on the cover, I did want to pick up that yellow and that green. So being 5.5 by 5.5, the yellow paper is 5 3/8 by 5 3/8. The green paper is 5 1/4 by 5 1/4, and then the patterned paper is 5 1/8 by 5 1/8, and that just leaves that little touch of green in between the two. So moving on, I've done this in a closure with this adorable black and white gingham checked ribbon, and when you open the folio, as you can see, I have a little belly band page here, and I had so much scrap that I'm a true believer in using as much of the paper collection as I possibly can, in as many ways as I possibly can. I love to create new things and incorporate as much of the paper into my folios and albums as I possibly can. And this paper is so vibrant and beautiful, and I love all these little bees. They're so whimsical. So for this page, I did a belly band, and then I added this cute little slide mechanism with one of the scraps that was left for the bee. I didn't want to throw this cute little piece of paper away. And so the mat behind here, again, is that yellow, and the belly band is matted in the green. So we get a nice contrast. And I've put a little card folio that I created using the paper with the yellow. Corners are rounded, and all of my designer papers in this album I have edged in black soot distress ink just to add a little bit more of a vintage vibe. And this one is a fussy cut on the inside that I've only glued around this slight corner so that you could slip a gift card or other note or anything that you'd like inside this if you're giving it as a gift. Over on this side, this fold over page is also a pocket that you could put, again, a gift card, a photo. If you gave this as a gift and someone was using this to remember a trip or something, or, you know, anything like that, they can put whatever they want in here. That's a memento. I added another one of those black paper doilies and some more of that die cut honeycomb. Then the album opens this way. So you end up with 3. Sorry, my light is in the camera there. Apologize for that. And you have all of this. On this side, we have a pocket across the bottom with more of that honeycomb die cut, and a tag that I also created using a Graphic 45 die and the scraps of paper that I had. And I wanted more of that yellow again to show and pick up from the papers. So I matted this back behind the pocket with that, matted the pocket with the green, and then just added a little strip of scrap up there. Now onto the middle, I had some really pretty scraps from an old paper collection that had some nature-inspired quotes on them. Very poetic, and I thought that just played really well with the paper, especially having this gold foil on the paper. So this is just a little flip folio that could be used. You could also line this with more paper if you like. And that is our first tip out. And like I said, on the next segment, I will show you how to create these tip outs and how to add them to the folio or any other album that you're working on. I've put that honeycomb die cutting also on the corners here. And this being the first tip out opens this way to a photo mat. The paper for this one was only adhered using score tape going around the 2 sides and across the bottom to create that pocket to slide this in. So again, we have a photo mat here, a photo mat here. Pull out here, we have a photo mat here, and also here. Then when you close this up, I've also embellished the back with the paper as well. And on the back, I did mat this with the green paper. So that is my album. And like I said, there'll be a short pause, and then I will show you how I created the base. See you soon. Hello everyone, Jen here today. Today I want to show you guys how I created the base and some of the pages for my folio with tip outs. This is a super fun project and it's fairly easy to create. The base looks like this once everything comes together. And I showed you a full walkthrough of the folio when it was complete at the beginning of my video. So now let's just dive right into how the base is created. Firstly, we are going to have 2 sheets of 8.5 by 11 black paper, and that's been cut to 2 5.5 by 11 inch sheets, as you can see. And we're going to place those on our scoreboard. And I like to do my my score tape this way so that I know that it's nice and straight. And I will show you. This is just a little trick that I learned when I'm binding 2 sheets of paper. Now, if you have paper that is longer, they do make longer cardstock sheets. I just have never purchased any. So I like to line my score tape up as good as I possibly can, which I was a little off there, as you can see. And that gives me usually a nice straighter edge with my score tape to attach these pieces. I didn't do a very good job on that one, but normally that would butt up better to this edge of my scoreboard. And then when you do have the tape on, I just like to line it up, the inside edge of the tape, with a number on my scoreboard. And that helps to line this paper up so that you get a nice straight piece to work with when you're scoring. So I try to butt it up to that 7, the corner there. And then I'm just going to line it up all the way down. And there you have it. Now this is going to be a lot straighter, smoother sheet to work with when you're scoring. I like to burnish all that down, and I just had my burnishing tool disappear on me. I always think I'm prepared for a video, and then poof, something's missing. I'm sure we all have that. So we're just going to lay this on here lengthwise. And you may have a better method of doing this. Some people may want to score the sheet separately and then connect them. I just do it this way. It's the way I've been doing it for ages. So for that, the base, we're going to score this first at 5.5, because this is going to end up being a 5.5 by 5.5 folio in the end, and it'll have 2 tip outs that are also 5.5 by 5.5. So we're going to score here at 5.5, score again at 5 3/4, which gives us a 1/4 inch spine. Now, if you're somebody that's amazing at math, you could probably figure out exactly where 5.5 is from 5 3/4. For me, I like to just be sure so I don't have to waste paper, and I will fold over that second part there, butt this back up, and then go to 5.5 and 5 3/4 on here, and then I do it one more time. And that is just how I learned to get a nice smooth transition from each 5.5 inch panel. This one you do not need anything but the 5.5 when you're at the end, because that's going to be our last page. And what that leaves you with is this little bit here. Now we are going to fold in and make a pocket that is 3 inches. So if you take this 5.5, 6.5, 7.5, 8.5, and I'm going to just do that. And then we just bring in a cutter and cut off that excess paper at the end that we do not need beyond the 3 inch mark. Okay, and that gives us our base. This will fold this way. I want to fold all of our score lines that we made and make sure everything lines up nicely, which it should. Now you have, this will be the middle. This will fold in and create a pocket, and we will have it like so. And this will end up being the base of the folio. Next, we want to do our tip-ins. And tip-ins, I showed these in the previous, but in this one, as you can see, they are 2 extra pages that are just tipped in to create a little more space in that folio. For that, we have 2 5.5 by 6 inch pieces of the same black cardstock. And I do use a bit of a thicker weight. I believe it's about 85 pounds I don't go with 100-pound. It's a little too thick. So for these little guys, like I said, they are 6 by 5.5. We want to put them on the 6 and score them at 1/2 of an inch. These are going, and then just burnish your score lines down. And those are going to be our tip-ins. And then once these are decorated, they will go like so to create pages. And we will not put those on yet because these are bound by the designer papers that you lay down. They actually fold under. So you get this nice flip out. And I did not get that one burnished good enough. And you will have this. Then this will be your cover. So moving along, we have to create how many mats that we want. And as far as deciding what color, I went with a couple sheets of a green cardstock that went well with the green in the papers. And for the majority, I went with this honey mustard color cardstock for my mats. And you will need a total of 10 of the colored mats. And I like mine to be 1/8 of an inch space all the way around. So 1/8 of the black base will show all the way around my colored. And for that, the solid mats, you will need 10 5 3/8 by 5 3/8 inch mats. And that will cover all of the fronts and backs of, including the back side of these. You also, for the pocket and the pocket cover, will want a cover. And this one I did not write down. I apologize for that. So let's just measure it now. I chose to use the green for my pocket cover just as a little bit of a variation. And it measures 5 3/8 by 2 7/8. And so this little designer paper that goes on top of that measures at 5 1/4 by 2 3/4. So you will need that as well. And as far as the patterns, when I work with pattern paper, I like to look at the papers, all of them in as a whole, the whole entire collection, and just grab pieces that I know are going to play well with each and every page. I have a page that has a pocket. I want to make sure that the background lines up nicely with the pocket. And for that, I just go through and I pick out the sheets that I want. And for this, I have cut 9 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 pieces from that big paper. And that is what will be used to cover all the papers. So for that, I'm going to show you my example here in the middle. And this will line up. You want to make sure that your papers always line up right on the edge of your score lines, but that they don't overlap them. If they overlap them, you will not be able to fold and close your album properly. So for this back piece, I chose a really pretty piece that was more vivid to use as more of a photo mat back here. And this will lay down like so. And see, we have that little bit of play of about 1/8 of an inch of the mustard yellow showing all the, excuse me, the honey yellow showing all the way around. And this is a page that we will be putting our tip-ins. So that will, these will get embellished, and then I will show you how those slip in. Okay, so let's move on with some building of the folio and adding our papers. For my designer papers, I will be using black soot distress ink from Tim Holtz from Ranger, just to do some edging. I like that look of just a little bit of that ink, and it also plays well with the black background. You can use any color you want. A lot of times if I'm doing something very vintage looking, like this beautiful paper, I use the vintage photo. But for today, because I have a black background, I'm going to go ahead and use black. So firstly, I like to take my designer paper and put that onto the colored mat first. And my reasoning for that is so that I can line it up perfectly, or as perfect as is possible. I'm also using glue for this step. You can use score tape. I prefer glue, mainly because I can reposition my paper several times. I can slide it around and make sure that it fits really, really well on my sheet. Now, we're going to do the middle first so that I can show you how I add those tip-ins. So, the tip-ins can be done two ways. They can be put underneath this piece here and added, and then you can leave the back open if you like for a pocket. Or they can be added to the back if you're not going to put a top pocket. And for this one, I am going to add these to my inside, as I did in the folio that I showed previously. For this step here, score tape can be used for this. And this is just, we want to make sure this score line on that 5.5 by 6 inch tip in is done really well. And like I said, you can use glue. I'm going to use score tape this time. And I'm just going to line that 1/2 inch score tape along my edge here. Try to get that right on the edge, lined up as well as you possibly can. And then I'm just going to snip that off. Burnish that down. And score tape is not always my friend. As for some people, a lot of people like to use glue on their entirety of their projects. For me, I am a glue user. I do prefer glue over score tape, but there are some things that score tape just does work better for. So there we have that score tape there. And we're just going to line this flap up as close as possible to the score lines on either side, and then burnish that down, and that will create this little flip, and this will be covered. And then once again, we just want to make sure that that score line on the side will still open and close. And you can always go back in. It looks like this one I may have got a little close. So you can always go back in and re-score to make sure that it will close and it will fit. And it looks like I might have offset it just a bit. It's very easy to do. Once I want to make sure that I get it completely functional before I add any other papers to it. So now we have this, and this is where we want to decide if you want this to just be flat all the way across there, or if you want to create a pocket here or here. And for the other flap, we're going to put it on the underside. So it will be adhered this way rather than the other way, and it'll flip up and have a pocket in it. So for this portion, we're going to go ahead and put this down just as a flat panel, creating a photo mat for that back piece. And remember, when you're gluing, I've learned this over the years, that you don't need a lot of glue. A lot of people will put just an absolute ton of glue on their project, and then they have a big mess and they get frustrated. And I did that many, many times over before learning from another amazing crafter in the industry that you just don't need a whole lot of glue. So that is burnished down. Beautiful. There's our first page, and that is the middle page. Now, with this type of a folio, you can choose to just do one tip-in. You can choose to make your tip-in any way that you like. You can put another one over here instead of having one here and one here. I have decided to make mine pretty close to the same as my fall one that I did last year that I showed you a little bit ago. And with that one, we have just a flap and a flap, and then there is the photo mount along with a little tip spot with some ephemera in there. And that's how I created this one, and I just really loved how it turned out. So that is how I'm going to be doing this one. Now this top portion will have a slip out as well. Once you get this page going, you can move on and do the exact same things as far as your mats and your designer papers, and continue to do that throughout, remembering, of course, that you want to make sure that all of your papers go just to the edge of the score lines, but don't overlap them. This one here for the pocket page, you won't need as much paper, and I actually am opting not to put any designer paper here. I may end up, when I go through my scraps, at the end I like to add things to my folios, and I keep my scraps close by so I can kind of see what I have. And I will go back and I will maybe add a strip of paper if I like the way it looks better. It's a matter of playing with what you have and what you prefer. Like I could just add this little strip to the top and leave a little yellow around, have that yellow in the middle, and then my pocket. There's many things you can do, and as I can see, this is not real straight, so I'm going to have to go in and recut the edge of that pocket. So that is how that part is done, and I will go through and get the rest of this embellished. And all of these pages are done exactly the way that we just did this one. And then I will move on to creating the cover in the next segment. So until then, thanks.